further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. Now we get to share the success and recognitions. We have our 2026 graduation video.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So first, I want to say thank you to all the board members that attended the graduations. As you know, they're meaningful events. There was a few tears shed by the beautifulness of all of the students being able to cross the stage, just as you experienced in your districts. I also have to say a shout out to our communications department led by Camille Hepla and Rachel Prost. This video, what I love about this video this year is you are going to hear student speeches or portions. And so anytime we can bring student voice into a quick summary of all the greatness that occurred, that's just wonderful. And thank you to our staff and everybody that worked extremely hard so that our students could cross that stage, either in a transition plan for graduating from District 287. So it's a short little clip, but here's a summary.
I'd like to congratulate my fellow graduate and thank all the amazing people who helped us get to this moment.
There were days where things were very overstimulating and everything wasn't going the way you wanted, but we didn't give up. We showed up, we pushed through even when things were hard.
Every single staff I have worked with these past couple of years has made such a beautiful influence on my life. Each of you pushed and pushed me to do better because you knew I could.
I want one thing for people to know. This wasn't something that came easy. You have to work for this. You have to be dedicated to what you do.
My hope for the future is that everyone can achieve our dreams, no matter how hard they may be.
Again, pretty amazing video, and just thank you for everybody that supported our students in the journey.
With that, I think. Thank you, Camille, too, and please pass our thanks on to Rachel. That was beautiful, and I know she was running around getting pictures everywhere. So, thank you. Any board members have anything they want to share about graduations? The two were awesome. This captured it really well. Okay. So we have under our superintendent's report, we have an update on the MapStars student participation. So Superintendent Dowd, are you going to introduce? And
Yes,
then...
I will.
Okay.
So you've seen in my Friday updates about MapStars, and I said we'd bring it to the board for a presentation. So I'm going to ask Director Kiara Zachary to come on up, the Director of Equity and Inclusion, and present MapStars and our student participation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to share with you our update for MapStars this year, and I'll just wait for my presentation to pop up. Oh no, it's okay.
You'll see some of us in Monster shirts.
Yes.
Because we have Monster Week going on this week.
Yes.
So, attire is around a monster.
It's a monster. It's a monster of a week. We spend a lot of time together. Thus, scary movie t-shirts are in order. All right, so here is our MapStars update. MAP stands for the Minnesota Association of Alternative Programs. STARS is their student program, and it stands for Success, Teamwork, Achievement, Recognition, and Self-Esteem. So we'll just talk about what MapStars is, and then we'll talk about what we did with MapStars, We'll highlight our regional event and then the state spring conference. So like I said, MapStars is the Minnesota Association of Alternative Programs. It's a life skills and leadership program for high school students and alternative learning programs. So all of our students qualify, and all of our sites qualify to have chapters. So they develop different skills and they learn things like personal finance, decision making, leadership. They can perform visual arts or make art displays at different competitions. There's 3 opportunities for students. There is a fall leadership conference, a spring conference, and then there's a number of regional events that can be held throughout. There's also a staff leadership conference where MAP advisors can join together, can organize and talk about how they are running their various programs. The organization is volunteer led, and I think that that's really important to note because the folks that are running this program really just do it because they absolutely love the students. They love ALC programming. They're really passionate about providing students these opportunities. And this is, I think, the first year, and I don't know how many years, or maybe the first time ever that that MAP has received state funds to help support districts being able to attend. So the MapStars chapter membership is really, really affordable, and they've been providing transportation reimbursements, and then also, again, making the fall leadership conference for students and the spring conference really affordable for our students, so districts or ALC programs aren't facing financial barriers to participate. In addition, this year, and it's likely due to the funding, that MapStars serve the officers, which are elected student leadership positions. They are elected and nominated by their peers at the fall leadership conference. Each chapter gets a representative. And though that group of students is an ALC advisory committee to Commissioner Willie Jett. So this is a really, really big deal and a great honor for our students. So this year we had our first MAP officer. Her name is Aviana Huff. You actually got to hear her voice just a little bit in our graduation video just before this. So this is the first time that we've attended the fall leadership conference. So we sort of fed and tapped on the shoulders of students that attended the spring conference last year and asked them if they were interested in going to the fall leadership conference. It's a super quick turnaround. I think it's like the first week of October. It's before MEA. So we had to do some planning and have our students identified before then. And we had we held 287 held our first regional MAP event, and I'll talk about that in a second. We sent 21 students to the spring conference, which was pretty amazing. And this is our second year in recent history of sending the spring conference, and we also stayed overnight. So I think that's like a huge thing too. We had the biggest crowd there. So the logistics of managing 21 teenagers, right? In hotel rooms and like going in between the conference the convention center where they were holding the spring conference in the hotel. They were actually really wonderful and it was super easy, but there was so much planning that went into it. And so I'll shout out the team that helped support that. Oh, and you'll see pictures of our students at the various events. So we had students from 6 different schools competed in 5 events at the District Service Center in March. So Dr. Tanya Allen and the Student Supports Department, they organized the entire event. So between recruiting schools to come, helping to prepare students, recruiting judges, like our staff were volunteer judges, and helped set up the event. They were welcoming in and signing in folks. Our district office staff, and then we also had some volunteers to come from the sites too. But it was really an opportunity, one, to give our students a practice round, right? So students that hadn't participated before, that may have been new to the program, had a lower stakes opportunity that wasn't in Mankato, that wasn't away from wasn't away from their families to try. And for students who can't access the overnight, right, that might not have been the best fit for them, they also had an opportunity to compete. So it was a pretty big deal, again, to create access for our students in different levels. And then we went to the spring conference and really racked up. Yeah, we racked up. So some notable accomplishments is that our team from Gateway received the first place overall. So first they won the team parent decision making competition. So students are given a scenario, and then a group of students they have to present a solution and how they would handle the scenario around parenting, or things like human resources or management. And so we won. Yay. There were a lot of students, so over 95 entries for employment interviews. So it's mock interviews. Students come prepared with a resume. They have to fill out a job application, choose a job that they want to, and then they do mock interviews with judges at MAP. And so of 95 entries, our students placed 5th and 8th overall. And as you can see, lots of ribbons. The art displays and the art demonstrations are not judged, but they do receive feedback for their work, and glowing feedback, really beautiful work from our students. So here are just some pictures of them holding up their ribbons and students. And then this is our group from Gateway with coaches, with the MAP advisor, Sarah Prososki, and then our assistant principal from Gateway, Scott Swanson, who was so inspired. So every year at the spring conference, they honor a MAP advisor of the year. And this the individual that won this year has created an entire course that he's sharing for free. So Scott has connected with that person and is building a MAP Stars course for our students so that as they're working on their skills, that they can receive credit for it next year. Super exciting. I wanted to show you all a poem that one of our students did, but the sound isn't working, but we'll try to link it in and get the video to you get that video to you somewhere else. But that was Jalen from SEC. So Sarah Prososki asked her students, just in sort of a end of year reflection, what was the best thing, or what is something that you thought, or what was a highlight of your year? And so here is a quote from Saring, who is one of our students at Gateway at CTC. And the part that really, the part that touches me or warms my heart the most about this quote is that it taught us the power of working together and how you can accomplish more with others. Right? Their team really came together. They were so supportive of each other as they were announcing the ribbons, and they were announcing the different awards and the medal placements. They were kind of like calculating where their peers were, even if they didn't participate in that event. And so the student that won 5th place for the job for the employment interview had never interviewed before ever. He had done no interviews. And so as they were saying the names of the folks, and I think they had like a top 10 or something, he hadn't heard his name yet. And so he was really disappointed because he thought he didn't place. And his team was like, no, you placed, like you placed, you're winning, you did a really good job. And he was like, no, I don't think I did. And so when he heard his name at 5th place, like everybody just cheered. It was like one of the greatest moments. And so they were extremely supportive of one another. They really wanted to come together as a team. So that's just a little highlight from our students. That's it.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Questions or thoughts for?
One question, is there any eligibility requirements for students to participate, or is it just anyone who's in one of our programs, they don't have to meet any certain requirements to participate?
No, we really just ask the work experience coordinators and counselors to work with students to help coach them for the different events. So, and they get to choose the events that they participate in. So, if students want to participate in an art display, right, because they really love art, they can do that. We really just try to meet students where they are, coach them so that they're prepared. And we just try to make it work.
Students who went and participated and had this great experience, are they invited to kind of speak to the students who are coming after them who haven't had that chance to kind of get that sort of
Oh, we absolutely leverage them. We leverage them to recruit. So Xaviana Huff is really why we have a strong team at CTC. She started the year at WEC and then started transition programming at CTC. And she told everyone about her experience. She told everyone about the various leadership activities that she got to do and really got the team around it. And it was really cool for them to see her in that space. They it's so cute. But the officers get like matching suits. And so she was walking around like looking very businesslike with this suit, and all of her team, like the rest of her team, was looking at her like they've never seen her that way before. But she was like presenting to everyone and she's directing things. I mean, it's really a leadership role. They open the spring conference, and so they invite everyone in. They talk about the purpose of math. They encourage their peers to participate in as many events as possible. So yes.
I just also have to acknowledge that if it was maybe my first year as a superintendent, and Dr. Tanya Allen said, we need to get back at this. We need to do this. And we didn't have a procedure for students to stay overnight. Like even in the past, I think they went there for the day, but they didn't stay overnight. And so her advocacy and Kiara Zachary's advocacy is what has made this phenomenal, and the right push and advocating for our students. Grateful for the leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing. Thank you for bringing our kids.
It's a joy. It really is the highlight of my year. It's so fun. I mean, there's downtime, so they introduced me to new music. We played very intense games of Uno, right? Like it's a great time.
How many adults did you need this year to help look after? all the
We
students?
had, there were 6 of us that stayed overnight. So we tried to maintain similar ratios to what we have at school. And then there were 2 assistant principals who drove down and then came back to see their students. So and then we also had a parent. We kind of stationed ourselves at different events so that students could always find one of us. But again, they were just they got their schedules, they knew where to go. They were really intent about making it on time. So I mean, it's really, I mean, they made it super easy, super fun. But yeah.
Keep it up.
Yes, of course we will.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is our instructional report, and Dr. John Voss, Director of Teaching and Learning, is going to provide an update on literacy and the READ Act.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent Dowd, and board members. I'd also like to introduce Dr. Carrie Seeley-Durzak, our Manager of Literacy Achievement. This is her first year, and she's brought a lot of energy and background experience to the role. And so she's going to talk about a number of things that we put into place. But we're largely giving an update on the requirements for the READ Act and our literacy efforts in 3 of these main areas. The first being professional learning. It's been a lot of activity for licensed and non-licensed staff in terms of how we're training on implementing literacy activities in the classroom, and the background of literacy in general, the 5 pillars of literacy. And then as far as assessment goes, there's a number of different areas where we have assessment requirements and things that we've put into practice. And then our local literacy plan that's required through that for reading to ensure academic development.
All right. Good evening, Madam Board Chair and board members and 287 leaders. I just want to share a little bit also about how the professional development has gone. And so if you're not familiar, one of the things that we use is CORE, which is Online Learning and Language Academy. And so this year we had 2 cohorts. We started one in the fall and we had 23 teachers in it and 19 have completed. We have a few that are have had some leaves, and so they have an extension, and that is approved by MDE. Then we started a winter cohort for our brand new teachers, just to give them a little bit of time to get their feet under them and just make sure that they are grounded. And then they will have until next January. So they've got like a little bit of respite over the summer. They can choose to work on it if they want, and then we'll pick up again in the fall. So that is what's happening for that. And then in terms of professional learning, this is part of the local literacy plan. So this is a new push. So all of our ESP staff are required to participate in 4 literacy sessions, and those are aligned with the science of reading. And so it's a really great opportunity for our educational support paraprofessionals to have that opportunity to understand what classroom teachers are doing and to support students, which is the most important part. And when we look at ESP staff who have been here throughout the calendar year, our rate is 90% for people who have finished, and we have ongoing makeup sessions, and we have a really robust system for tracking that and making sure that they will finish that. And then as new staff, ESP staff are joining us, we also will be providing that to them as well. And then for next year, Brightworks, which is one of our collaborating organizations who works through the Minnesota Department of Education, they will also be offering some makeup sessions, and hopefully that will help us out as well, just because it has been a pretty big lift for our instructional coaches and myself, because that's on professional development days, and there's so many things to learn, right? And so we're always trying to do that. One highlight that I just want to share with all of you is that we also offered through Kiara Zachary also helped organize this, but we had these micro sessions. And because we all know that you learn something once and you might learn it in August, and there's many, many things happening, but sometimes it doesn't stick. And so we had ongoing micro sessions for our educational support paraprofessionals. And so that happened throughout the year. And those were sessions that I put together just as like a way to sustain that literacy learning and make sure that, you know, those staff members have a chance to work with people in their own buildings and make it real. And then looking towards next year, when we look at professional learning, we will continue with our core training. We've got those staff members who are in it, and they're going to finish up by next winter. And then we will be continuing on, as I mentioned, with our educational support paraprofessionals. I'll be doing some of that training, as well as our instructional coaches. We are training more instructional coaches. We got some feedback that we wanted to make sure that that was spread out. And so we will be adding to that. And I think that'll be a real benefit. And then as far as implementation of MTSS, we're really looking at collaborative teaming and making sure that that is happening at the buildings. We're looking at assessments and goal setting so that students are really getting the support that they need, and then building that coach and administrative capacity for support. So that is the focus for professional learning. And Dr. Voss is going to talk a little bit about assessment.
And as Dr. Carey mentioned, we have multi-tiered systems of support next year as a fundamental part of our efforts around the strategic plan, both for theming and goal setting. And a big part of that is using assessment data. And so we've been developing our assessment protocol for decision making in terms of which assessments students take, and also a guide to go with that with step-by-step instructions on them, how you set targets and goals and implement progress monitoring to check on that throughout the year. We do screening 3 times a year in fall, winter, and spring. And those, we use a number of different resources, the FastBridge curriculum-based measures in reading for the majority of our students who can access FastBridge, and then Project VC, or virtual coaching is what it stands for, even though the big part of it is their rubrics for assessing pre-emergent readers and determining how to measure the progress in those skills over time. And then this year, we've also emphasized weekly progress monitoring. So we've had a lot of time spent on making sure that we get updates on how students are doing, and then also how satisfied we are with the progress they're making. We talked about that in a little bit of context of the strategic plan reporting. And the new part of this year was to implement the CAPTI. It's intended to provide a dyslexia screening as part of the READ Act. And we've also found it very useful for diagnostics in assessing particularly older students who may not have the literacy skills, but still need to have that targeted support and intervention. And this particular assessment helps us narrow that down a little bit more for the skills that they really need to build on. So there's, as we go into next year, we've revised our scheduling to make this all fit together a little bit better, and we've learned a lot about that process throughout this year. And has been very involved with Collaborative Network as well.
Yeah, so it's really important to just make sure that we are in touch with everything happening with updates with the READ Act. And then also, as you all know, being member districts, just making sure that we're talking to one another and really, taking what's working well and problem solving around that. So I participate in monthly, and then there's optional ones. And because I'm new to this role, I go to all the ones just because it's good to collaborate. So we have our regional literacy network through Brightworks, and then we also have the communities of practice, and that is where all the literacy leads across the state join, and it's broken down. So it's mostly just the metro area that I attend. And then I also attend, as I mentioned, just some other things through the READ Act. And I'm doing some work this summer with some of the other intermediate districts as well. So that's really helpful just to make sure that, we're learning from each other. And if we're grappling with similar questions, that we bring those up. And, we have raised some of those things to MDE, and it's just been a really positive experience.
The local literacy plan is another part of the requirement, and it really helps guide us in our work and deliver consistency of practice, particularly as we implement MTSS and work on our continuous improvement around our literacy goals. One of the benefits of the last few days this week with having all of our administrators together is to plan carefully around assessment, goal setting, how we're going to learn more as administrators over the course of the summer, and how we're going to prepare our coaches to be ready for workshop week to begin to put all these things together, how we're preparing for New Staff Academy coming up in August, and then embedding all of that within our professional development plan, that the energy that we've put into core and the ESP literacy training continues throughout the year in what we do with MTSS and also with the goal setting that we do for the strategic plan.
All right. And so just again, being new to the district, I felt like it was really important just to make sure that I had a really great grounding on, what does a literacy look like in all of our sites, across our, kindergarten all the way up to transition. And so some of the things that I've done this year is really just, building that knowledge of, what does that look like at 287? How is core being implemented? Is our curriculum working? So those are all things that, I've been, questioning and asking and doing in collaboration with our site leaders and our coaches. And, really looking at how that matches up with our diagnostic assessments. And then I think one of the things that I'm going to close with is really trying to build that literacy mindset and just really building that culture of literacy. And you can see by a couple of these pictures here, and I'm going to embed a few photos here just because I do feel like, really our students can't all be at these things, but, they are the heart of what we all are here for, right? And so these are some pictures of some of the different family nights that we've been involved in. And also there's a writing contest that, kind of like the MAP program, wanting to make sure that students in 287 have these opportunities. These are things that other member districts have been doing for many years. And so I think this is really the first time that 287 has participated, and it's pretty exciting. So based on that, trying to really build that. And then within those observations, one of the things that I've been doing too is really to build that, collective efficacy up for teachers. And so I've been highlighting, I call them literacy rock stars. And so, I get nominations from, administrators, I get nominations from coaches, sometimes if it's, kind of quiet, I'll, have it be people that I've noticed on learning walks, and people are really touched, teachers, when I send those emails, they're very excited about it. And I think just to build that, collective efficacy, as I mentioned, and just that pride in, hey, I really put a lot of time and care into this, and we see you. And so, this idea of like hashtag we are readers, hashtag we are writers in 287, that'll be something that you'll hear from me and see from me. And so these are just a few photos from across the year. And I'm sorry, I don't have any exciting music, but you can just look. So these are just some highlights of my observations across the district, and we'll kind of go through these. And then at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So this is, again, what I mentioned before. So I'm part of the Minnesota Reading Association, which is a statewide organization, and they're under the umbrella of the International Literacy Association. And this year we had over 100 students in 287 participate, which I think is really amazing. And that's all the way from kindergarten, our tier 3 students who use communication devices, high school, gateway, basically all of our sites. So here's just a few pictures. The woman on the left, Miss Sophia over at ABEC, she told her parents that she is an award-winning writer, which she is, right? The picture in the middle is another student from ABEC who actually came to the event. The event was held at Richfield High School. And then this is another friend from ABEC, and we did her writing with a communication device. A couple other students from ABEC, Miss Tati in the middle was very excited. She wrote a poem all about Taylor Swift because, why wouldn't you, right? And then a couple other friends. I think the friend on the right recently graduated. He was thrilled. Here's some teachers at Care and Treatment. Just because of data privacy, we don't have photos of the students, but I just want to recognize Joan Liu on the left. She's one of our coaches. She has really worked hard, and she's done Hennepin County library visits, book visits. Basically, the students call her the book lady, and I am now known as the book fairy. So, why not, right? They've been working hard on building a reading identity focus, having author visits. Here's CTC, Gateway to College. And you might think some of these older students wouldn't be as excited, but they were so excited. And then this is over at NEC. So this is a little bit of a mashup of some of our writing students. And then also we had a reading book table. And so this was at one of their spring family events where I was giving out their certificates for students who didn't come. The boy on the far right in the blue, Anthony, he came to the event at Richfield, and he recognized me when we came for the carnival. So that was exciting. And more friends at North. All right. And then, of course, South, too. My buddy on the left was really excited. He doesn't look so excited in that picture, but he was really excited. It was just a long night. And then the one with the dots, that was at the family literacy night. So it was really cool to see both students and families. The women on the left, that was a mother and daughter duo. And then my friend on the right did a really beautiful job with some poetry and some artwork. And then here's some friends at West. And this is, again, a mashup of both the literacy events and some other certificates. And so that's it. So I just wanted to bring some of our students to you all just as we close. And again, just keep in mind that we are really building that culture of literacy and having that high expectation that all students can read and write and be scholars. And we just have to kind of change some of our, ways that we handle that. So I think it's really exciting to see that. So any questions that you all have?
Chair.
I just had a question. First, I want to say thank you. This is amazing. I love seeing all those pictures of the kiddos engaging with literacy in multiple ways. So thank you for that. And also the writing competition. It's really moving when we're able to give access to 287 students to what their peers back at home have access to. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I had a question. I saw the slide on the local literacy plan.
Yes.
How is it going?
How is it going for the implementation of it?
Yes.
I would say, in terms of like doing all of the things, in terms of, core and the ESP training and, just like the big buckets, we are doing all those things. Of course, we always want our students to be doing better, right? And so I think it's just that continuous growth mindset of, yes, we're making progress, we're progress monitoring, we're doing these things, but how do we keep doing better? And so I would say in terms of the compliance aspect, we're doing all the things. In terms of like continuing to get that growth, I think it's a work in progress, and it's something that we're continuing to work on. As a couple of the leaders have mentioned, this is Monster Week, and so it's been really refreshing to listen to our school leaders and to be in conversation about how can we do that better. And I think for me, the walkthroughs are really important because sure, we can sit and look and slice and dice data, but when you actually walk into a classroom, are these things that we've been planning, are they happening? Is it meaningful to students? Are they feeling like they, are responding to that work? And so I think that's an area where, again, that's why I want that to be our, kind of informal goal, if you will. I mean, of course, we're always going to have, those progress monitoring goals and different things, but I really think that sort of that idea of mindset is really an important one, but it's a little bit more of a, instead of being a quantitative goal, it's more of a qualitative goal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Curry, you covered that well. I would tell you we're at the compliance. We're meeting compliance and building that culture and like that progress, our staff are progress monitoring. How we use that for implementation and adjusting instruction, that would be an area of growth that we're still working on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think along those same lines, I'm going to ask it from a different direction, which is around the staff. So we're talking about student progression and so on and so forth, but I'm also thinking about the culture within the staff. So in your first part of the presentation, talking about where we are in the training of the staff and so on and so forth, I guess the question I wrote down was, where are we in terms of the pathway for the staff training and so on and so forth? Are we on target? Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, given sort of where we are with that? Because Grant, I recognize that in Edina, we've been doing it a lot longer than 287 has. So I'm trying to filter out my Edina experience to this. So I'm just wanting to be ground set as to where are we on terms of the staff getting the type of training in order to then bring that to the classroom. It's kind of hard to do that effectively if you haven't had the extensive training yet to be able to, and it's a lot of training to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the core training that is part of that READACT requirement, we are on track. One of the things that it's a challenge for 287, but it's the same for a lot of districts, is when you get brand new staff, right?
Yes.
So you start over and, thinking about some of our staff who are tier 1 instructors, it's a pretty big lift, right? You're learning how to be a teacher. And then we add this. So I do think I did get permission from MDE and Brightworks to not have them start. Typically people would start like in the fall, and that just felt like too much, right? It's a lot to take in. So we had that winter start, and that's the cohort that, is start, they're kind of in process right now, if you will. And then that'll happen again next year, just to give them a little bit of time and space. So we are on track for that. And then I would say beyond just the required training for the READACT, that's a continual process, right? We have our instructional coaches, we have administrators, we really are, as Superintendent Dowd mentioned, we're talking about like really improving we're doing progress monitoring, but how are we responding to that? And how are we making sure that all students are having those universal practices and those needs being met for literacy, since we're talking about that, but it's really all areas. And then if it's not going well, then what? How do we adjust our instruction? And so, you know, those are some really good conversations. I've worked with several teams across the district, and I you know, this is just my first year, so I want to continue doing that, because I do think, you know, it takes a little while to, as you know, build those relationships and make sure that, you know, teachers are getting what they need, and just, you know, having that humility of there's no dumb question, right? Like, ask and make sure that we have that understanding that, you know, we all have to continually improve ourselves so that we can serve our students and model that too.
Right. So thank you very much. So I think the question to the superintendent Dowd is then, do you find in that growth area that you were speaking to, this element that we were just discussing, I'm assuming those are not mutually exclusive. Those go kind of hand in glove, right? So from an expectation standpoint, if I'm thinking where we are a year from now, when you come back and you give us this great presentation and we get to see a lot of the great things that are happening and those great pictures and so on and so forth, where do you think, or where would you want to set our expectations a year from now based on those things you just mentioned?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. I think part of it too is thinking about the students that we serve. So you get core training of this intense training, and then how do you shift that mindset to say, yep, I can still do these strategies for a student that is using an augmentative device for
Right.
communication. So
Right.
that mind shift and then backwards mapping, understanding it, is an area of growth. I would say that we are still working on. We leverage our speech clinicians and everybody to go, okay, what does this look like? Doing a training, when I say compliance, doing a training and then seeing evidence of implementation is the biggest leap we
Right.
have
Yeah.
yet. And so identifying part of what we're working on with our multi-tiered system of support, which is part of next year's strategic plan. And I think it was Director Ross that said, is this what you're doing? You're building a foundation? Yes, this is exactly. In order to have the tiered system of intervention, you have to have the foundation of what is universal. That's been our heavy work this week. Entering into conversations. And so that we can say, what would we expect? What do we need to provide professional development? We can't expect our teachers to do without being very explicit, just like we would do direct explicit instruction. We need to do with our staff. And then DP professional development. Then we have to go, how are we seeing the classroom? And then we have to do walkthroughs. And then we have to say, okay, Marcy might need a little more support. So how do the coaches wrap around? That is the system I think, and I know we are building right now for implementation. And that's I would tell you, a big lift here.
Yeah.
Something that has been different because we've done so much specialized instruction and really haven't talked about what is the core function of literacy and how do we, because our goal is all of you, our collective students go back to your district. And this is what you're doing in your district. So how are we preparing our students to enter back into that and having the skills? And so implementation, launching implementation is where we will be next year. And collecting data on walkthroughs to look at evidence of implementation and then determine what other coaching or professional development would be a continuous improvement model. So we're developing that.
No, this is perfect. It's exactly
Yeah.
what I was asking.
I
So
just
I'm
wanted-
sort of thinking about where I think I might be for next year, is that the learnings that we're going to have as we go through that implementation, we'll have a lot of that in our discussion next year.
Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify when I asked about the local literacy plan, this is what we're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Because it is teacher adult focus.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
In keeping with talking about staff, when you were organizing educators for the professional development session, were they organized by the grade level they taught or the subject area they taught? How did you kind of organize them to learn together?
Great question. I think it depends on like the situation, right? And so for our educational support paraprofessionals. They are organized by their building. And then, for those micro sessions that I talked about that are follow-up, those are a little bit more specific. And so, if I'm over at Ann Bremer and I'm working with some students who have augmented communication devices, it's all those paraprofessionals, right? So that they have a common understanding. For core, it's a little more based on numbers. And so we can't be quite that specific. So I would say right now, I have a mix of educators from across our district. And so when we do our synchronous sessions, it is that whole group. And then I've also offered myself up to answer follow-up questions. So it depends on the situation. And then the follow-up on the professional development days, those are based on their teams and their schools. And I know some of my colleagues who came and talked to you, I think a couple of meetings ago, we've been doing a lot of universal practice training and unpacking the units. And those are very specific to, okay, I am, this teacher working in secondary, this is what I'm focusing on. So it depends on the situation, I guess, is the short answer.
But it's different about us than a traditional district. You don't take your third grade.
Right.
So we're talking about programs in our tiered system, a tier 2 program or a tier 3 program. And within that is grade bands. Because we don't have enough students to be a third grade team or a second grade team. And so you are doing across grade bands, and that's part of what makes us different in the coaching around standards of that grade level, tying it to the skills in their IEPs to support grade level access to grade level standards. And so that's the different part where we're going, how does this work for us? Because it's not as picture perfect as you would see in a traditional district when you're teaming by grade bands.
Other questions or comments? I think it's these two presentations, we've really seen the importance of those high expectations, because when we hold ourselves and our students to high expectations, we can meet them, but if we don't, then we won't. So keep up the high expectations, and we and our kids will meet them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have a business services and labor relations report tonight. Under board business, the AMSD Connections newsletter, it was as attached to the board book. There's a good review of the legislative session in there if you want some heavy reading. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else in terms of reminders, just we have one more meeting for this school year in 2 weeks, and then we will take July off. And then we also don't meet the first, the normal first meeting in August. We will meet the second, the fourth Thursday in August is when we'll meet next after the last meeting in June. So, any other thoughts, questions, once around the table? Anybody have anything to share?
I have more of a question. Superintendent Dowd, can you give us any summary or of your Blue Ribbon Commission presentation, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so thank you for that. The Blue Ribbon Commission met the last week of school. Each subgroup provided recommendations that were short-term recommendations and long-term recommendations. And it was aligned and different at the same time. So what I mean by that is we have talked as a board about ADSIS is one of those intervention funding streams that is part of the state funding formula. And the recommendations that came forward really did try to focus on not impacting students in special education, look at intervention or funding that's targeted towards intervention. Yet in special education, because we as a state, we have locally effort. You have to spend the same each year in special education costs, and the state has a maintenance of service. And so when you have intervention, if you cut 250 million out of special education, you could risk the state being in a maintenance of service. which cuts funding. And so we don't want to do that. So we have to look at things that don't impact that. So adds us the alternative delivery of specialized instructional services is one of those that was recommended. And the recommendations come from removing it completely to reducing it in different ways, either by a per pupil or a weighted formula. So there's a large 3 options around that. And so there's a hold harmless. So ADSIS was one of the things that was talked about. Hold harmless. So as part of a new funding formula in 2016, whenever you would start a new statewide special ed funding formula, you want to hold districts harmless to understand how that funding will come through. So there is a hold harmless level, about 40 some under 50 students or districts still receive hold harmless aid. And so whatever you got in 2016, if you have a declining enrollment, you're still going to get what you get in 2016. So we talked about, it's been 10 years since the new funding formula. Maybe we need to let that go because districts should be adjusting their expenditures if their enrollment's going down. So that was a key area. Just some taking another part that is a general education thing is that care and treatment, section 504, and homelessness. Transportation is part of the special ed funding formula, and not all students that receive those supports are in special education. So removing that was also discussed for long-term. That cost of transportation, as you all know, and your probably transportation budgets are going up. And so it's impacting that long-term increase of special expenditures. Other things that were talked about were programmatically, we're looking at aligning our IEPs to more of a federal versus our state structure of our individual education plans. Talked about teacher preparation and barriers. Talked about caseloads and time, things that I think have been a hot topic in special education. And Minnesota has a lot of laws that are supersede federal and adds extra paperwork and time for teachers. So a lot of focus on how can we get teachers doing what they do best and being with students, and what does that paperwork reduction look like? So I don't think there was any surprises. So they gathered all of the recommendations, they sent it out to the commission, and we all voted privately on things that we could fully support, partially support, or not support at all. They'll be gathering that information and bringing that forward, and then out of that, we'll vote again for the final recommendations that will go to legislation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a closed session tonight to discuss the superintendent evaluation. So I will entertain a motion to enter the closed session. Is that we don't have to do 2 different things, right? It just to go to the closed session, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Say why we're able to go in.
Oh, yeah. Right in front of me. Oh, yeah, I got it. Pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D.05 subdivision 3D, to evaluate the performance of the superintendent, the board chair or designee shall prepare a summary of the meeting and present it at the board's next regular meeting. So see that in on our second meeting in June. So with that, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn to the closed session? By Dan, second by Michael. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, and we are adjourned to closed session at 7:25, and we'll take a couple minutes to kind of reset the room. Thank you, everyone. Anyone needs a bathroom break or grab a drink or something, go for it.
Feel a little bit in my project today.
Okay.
Where did you find that? Yeah.
Oh, it's on the agenda item in the board. Book.
Oh, yeah.